Let me take the opportunity to introduce the rest of the panel. I will go in the order that it is presented to me here, and I'll ask the folks to come on up. First, we have Roi Carthy, who's the Chief Marketing Officer of Shine. Welcome, Roi. Nick Hugh is Vice President and General Manager of Advertising for EMEA at Yahoo. Thank you, Nick. Benjamin Faes is the MD of Media and Platforms at Google.
That's very mobile.
Oh, I know. Less mobile than otherwise would be the case. All right, and Pete Blackshaw, VP of Digital and Social Media at Nestle. Welcome, Pete. And finally, Allie Kline, who's the Chief Marketing Officer at AOL. I suppose I will take a seat. All right, welcome, panelists. Where to start? Nick. Because of your haircut, the first question goes to you. And it's a sort of hypothetical, right? So why are we here at MWC in 2016 talking about ad blocking? And I understand why we're going to talk about the future of ad engagement. That's great. We're going to come on to that. But let's address the most controversial topic first. What circumstances have conspired, do you think, to kind of bring us here?
Start with easy questions after the compliments about my hairstyle. All right, so I guess obviously we're here to talk about ad blocking. Everyone that reads anything in the press knows that it's a hot topic at the moment. I think the challenge for us as an industry is we all widely recognise that there is a problem. Where that problem at an industry level is we haven't as an industry tended to put the user first, and so you're creating some engagement issues. Now we at Yahoo have known about this one for a couple of years, and I'll cover later some of the ways that we've responded. But I do think it's fair to say at an industry level we all accept that's a problem, but we have very different views. And different views of which will be represented on this panel, I'm sure, of how to solve that, and that's clearly front and center in the press at the moment.
Pete, let's get your comments on this as a brand.
Yeah, well, first off, this is not a new issue. I mean, I've been in digital for nearly 20 years, first co-leading P&G's first digital team, and this tension between the the opportunity, the incredible opportunity of digital to provide, targeted advertising to consumers, and then this counter issue of just user experience and acceptance. It's been there. In fact, I wrote an Ad Age article at the end of last year, and I kind of chuckled about the deja vu factor with this debate, because some of you may recall in 2004, there's something like 100 million downloads of pop-up blockers. What's good about the debate is that it's forcing us, as we should as marketers, to stay very, very close to consumer opinion and sentiment. And just before this panel, I was reading all the reviews on the Apple Store related to ad blockers, and it's hard not to sympathize with some of the issues around user experience and load time and the like. And what we need to do is always find that win-win. Somewhere in the middle, there is a more acceptable ad model that consumers will accept, kind of similar to how consumers ultimately accept a paid music model when everyone kind of concluded that would never happen. And I do think consumers will kind of buy into that, but we cannot ignore the fact that there is real sensitivity out there. And it's not like the bad guys are out there on an island, they're all around us. I mean, in terms of, we've seen the detractors, and it is we. And so we need to kind of trust our inner consumer as we try to figure out how to get to a good ad model. And I think that Nestle is a major advertiser. We're very, very sensitive about ensuring that any type of digital ad formats that are pushed in the market work as well for the consumer as they do for the business.
Thank you very much, Pete. Roi, I heard you had an opinion on this as well.
A slight opinion, yeah. So some of you may have heard of us. We're from Shine Technologies. We provide network-level ad blocking to carriers. I think we should jump right into the dramatics and say that Shine is the single biggest threat in the history of online advertising. At the same time, we're also a stellar opportunity to reset relationships with consumers. We give consumers in an unprecedented ability, a choice not to be abused by ad tech. We also provide unprecedented protection for consumers against ad tech. And those things are absolutely game changers. However, we are not against advertising. I think there's a misconception that at least Shine is against advertising. We certainly are not, but we do believe that new rules of engagement need to come about. Certainly what we are doing can be considered blunt, but we believe that our strategy is more about helping expedite a solution rather than just sit and discuss it. But at least the industry has begun to engage it. This panel would not exist, I would say, without Shine's rather aggressive execution this past year, and certainly with our most recent announcement that the 3 Group is rolling out ad blocking to its customers, to 30 million of its customers, beginning with the UK and Italy. And by the way, just for a small correction from the previous presentation, it will be all by opt-in, so this isn't going to be switched on and folks are going to opt out. The user engagement and opt-in are going to be directly with Shine, and it's going to be by user choice alone.
So hypothetically, you are an opportunity Benjamin. I'd like to get your perspective on, what do you think, in light of the discussion we're having here, what do we as an industry need to consider?
Yeah, so we didn't wait for Shine to address this issue. We've been really investing a lot to sort out the bad ads from the good ads. I'm a huge lover of advertising. Okay, I think advertising can be informative, entertaining, can be useful, and so we've invested a lot of technology to sort out the bad ads. And as a matter of fact, Google every day roughly blocks around 2 million creatives that sometimes carry malware, are not appropriate, etc. And I think that's something that we should do as an industry, is improving the ad ecosystem. In any open system, there will be some deviance, and we need to address those. But I'm clearly worried by blunt solutions that actually are not rewarding even the good publishers. There's plenty of publishers that have very, very reasonable ad loads and ad policy, and they still don't get the benefit of any ad blocking theory.
Allie, you look like you have something to add.
Oh, no, I would agree. I think there's a couple of ways to think about this. So many, many years ago, well before even you were at P&G, right? So Procter & Gamble essentially invented the soap opera, right, as a carrier for advertising. So they said, okay, we really understand the Tide and Tampax and whatever consumer, and how can we create content that is engaging, relevant, attractive, and in many ways addictive to consumers? And then also, how can that content be a carrier to some degree for our advertising? And that model works really well. It built kind of this awesome triangle of content owner, or as we know today, publisher or app developer, consumer, and advertiser. And so when we think about where we go from here, and we've been pretty vocal on this, last, I think, around Advertising Week in the United States, this issue was a big hot topic, and then it subsided a little and is coming back again. But the investment in what type of content experiences, whether that involves carrying a marketing message or whether that involves carrying just a content or an entertainment message, that is where, in my view, I wish we'd spent more time talking, right? So I wish we were talking about what type of ad, content, marketing innovation do we need to do in mobile on a much tinier screen, where you have a universe moving largely to mobile video, right? How do we rethink about what is the way consumers want to consume that content? What is the way publishers need to create content to underwrite that? And advertisers will be on board with that. They have historically always done that. As Ben pointed out, the technology to block bad actors is actually a great use of technology and to do that. But I worry at times that we spend a lot of time talking about how to stop ads versus talking about how to invest in content and creative. And that's a really awesome conversation with audiences like this at an event like this, is how do we continue to grow this industry?
I agree. I mean, my build on this is that we're in such an interesting inflection point in the digital industry. I mean, you see it walking around here. You feel like, boy, the world is changing and fast. And we're moving to rich media. And you know, a whole golden age of advertising could evolve if we kind of get it right. We have the opportunity to really shape the video model. And I think this is a good opportunity for the industry to really almost turn this into an opportunity, almost like a galvanizing moment, if you will, to really think about, you know, how do we figure out the right win-win model. We clearly can't ignore the publishers, but we have to be sensitive to the consumer side. But we've got this inflection point where new formats are evolving at a much faster pace than I've ever seen. So how do we, you know, seize the moment and kind of get it right?
Yeah.
So Nick, to kind of pull on that thread a little bit more, can we be sufficiently effective in evolving the formula, you know, in time? You know, we've seen this thing. You know, this is growing. It's a very, very small base right now, right? But obviously, very, very high growth rates from a percentage perspective, right? So, you know, do we have sufficient time to perfect the formula? How long do you see this kind of taking?
So we, about 2 years ago at Yahoo, we took the active decision to remove all display formats from mobile devices, whether that is on mobile web or in-app, entirely in favor of native, which is more integrated into the content, much more immersive, much faster load time. We won't even, if it takes longer than 200 milliseconds to return an ad, we won't return an ad when we're on a mobile device. And the reason we do that is because we have, through our Flurry acquisition a couple of years ago, we have a lot of data around what it means to have an effective consumer proposition on mobile. And we see, particularly in a mail type of environment, some of the knock-on impact when we run bad ads. So we give consumers the opportunity to tell us directly, not through a blunt instrument of an ad blocking technology, but tell the publisher directly, this is a bad ad, please remove it, and we will action that in an automated way. And that's the type of direct consumer relationship that you have to have, and that's how you drive consumer engagement. And interestingly, from an advertising perspective, whether you're looking at ad recall, brand effectiveness, and so forth, it's much better performing than typical display units were anyway. So my concern of this blunt instrument, and Roi did refer to it as blunt himself, is you're blocking at a network level, but actually at a publisher or a property level, some are very good. And so if you block everyone, you completely destroy the value exchange in the ecosystem. So I don't think we have loads of time to figure it out, because actually once a user has started blocking ads, it's pretty hard to uninstall it. We do, as an industry, have to address it. Certainly at Yahoo, we've been addressing it for a couple of years, and we're very happy with the progress we've made to date.
Roi, thoughts on that? You know, anything that you're observing? It just occurs to me that if these folks are successful in adapting their strategies, that might actually be bad news for Shine.
None at all. Our objective is to provide consumers a non-abusive ad tech experience. If it's done by means of Shine, that's fantastic, and if it's done by new best practices, that's fantastic. We've been very, very clear about this. But let's also be very clear on one more thing. I mean, it was said here that not every publisher is a bad publisher, and I completely agree with you. That is indeed true. However, every individual using a mobile handset, a smartphone, a desktop is being abused by ad tech. That's not selective. That's absolutely 100%. We're talking about military-grade tracking, targeting, and profiling. Okay? That's what it is. There's very smart people working at all these companies developing this type of technology. Consumers do not have the ability to protect themselves, not by providing passive feedback or anything of this sort. So I understand that there's a criticism that all publishers are being painted with a single brush. Absolutely, I agree. There needs to be more nuance here. However, where the conversation is right now with ad blocking, it's less about nuance and more about sending a very clear signal. At the same time, Shine has made it very clear that any party who would like to discuss with us, whether it's an advertiser, the ad tech providers, or publishers, would like to sit down with us and discuss how new rules of engagement could come about and how we can protect consumers and provide them a better advertising experience besides providing better content, which is perfectly fine. We're more than happy to do so, whether it's in London, in DC, in New York, or in Silicon Valley.
What type of data do you have to show I guess the question that I'm wondering is, why is Shine able to determine what is a good or a bad ad on mobile, given I don't think you have very many people using your technology today. So what type of data are you using to be able to do that objectively? And also, how do you make money?
Sure. So a couple of things. First of all, we do not determine what is a bad ad. We provide a consumer the ability to switch on ad blocking, the choice. And I know that's uncomfortable, but that's the choice we provide. And then you can have that conversation with the consumer. As you said, folks that turn on ad blocking, the experience is just too good, right? So that conversation should happen.
So you don't allow any whitelisting of publishers?
No, we do not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you make money?
We will make money. Right now, we're not generating revenue. Our objective is to continue working with network providers, MNOs, to help bring our services to their consumers, in which they will opt in to Shine services, and Shine will be able to protect them from ad tech. And hopefully, the objective in the long play is that we will be able to create a relationship of trust and choice with the consumer, Shine and the consumer. The consumer will trust Shine to protect them from ad tech abuse, and therefore provide a non-abusive experience. But that's a little far off into the future.
This is a very nuanced topic, obviously, and I do appreciate you folks drawing out some of the nuance. I do want to focus, since we're at a kind of an operator-centric show here, Benjamin, I'd like to kind of get your perspective on something that James in his presentation called out, and that is the blocking of ads by operators, by mobile operators. Do you have a kind of a thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I'm very uncomfortable by the idea that an operator or an ad blocking company can decide on my behalf that I'm not seeing any ads. That's the case, for example, with Digicel, where it's an opt-out experience. Blocking all ads, I think it's diminishing my experience of advertising. And in that case, we see actually an issue for the user themselves. More and more publishers just can't afford to give their content for free without the fair trade of ad versus content. Mm-hmm. And so a user with an ad blocker will keep running on websites who ask them either to pay or to unlock the ad blocker. And then he unlocks the ad blocker and he sees all the bad ads again. So that's really not a solution for the users, for the publishers, for anybody. I've been lucky enough to work on the internet for the last 18 years now. And there's one thing that really fascinates me is how the internet has enabled so many new content creators. There used to be bloggers and vloggers and all the content creators on YouTube more recently. And that's the beauty of the internet. And all those people, those beautiful content creators, they've been able to do this because of ads, because of good ads, because of a good, fair experience. And I just don't want to ruin that ecosystem. It's just the free internet that we love. And so I'm really concerned by this black and white thing. And I think your answer is very fuzzy as to what do you do to reward good behavior. You want to provoke the ecosystem and say, okay, all ads are bad, now sort it out. I don't feel abused by my mobile phone. I don't know how many of you feel abused by your mobile phone. One here in the front, two. All Shine employees, probably. There's something where it's not giving user a choice to say it's yes or no. The choice is, have a good experience. Let me help you have a better ad experience. But this kind of rhetoric around a company that use rhetoric like military to decide that I'm not going to see ads, that concerns me a lot, yeah.
So
I'd agree.
Allie, I presume a non-military strategist, what is your kind of staying focused on the
Is
operators?
there something
here for one
about
moment.
I don't look military
No,
to
I'm
you?
not
I don't
saying
look
that
tough
at all.
enough?
I'm not passing
Okay.
any judgments. I just read your bio, and there was
kidding.
nothing in there.
Nothing in there about
at
military.
all.
You're
Maybe
right.
it's secret. It could be.
Okay.
It could be
No. Just me and a 5-year-old at home. Yeah. So here's what I would say. I mean, so I think the thing I am, as Ben said, very concerned about the publisher equation in all of this, because I do think, as someone that's been on the internet for quite some time, 20 plus years working on the internet as well, the ability for it to unleash a huge volume of content creators and also kind of deepen the creativity we have as consumers at our disposal, like that is one of the biggest democracies we've seen emerge, right? In any of our lifetimes, for sure. And so that's, in my view, extremely important to protect. I think the other thing that I just remind us here is that the mobile is the first time the consumer has outpaced publishers or advertisers in terms of innovation, right? So the consumer is further ahead of where advertising and mobile and publishing or content creation is. And that's because it happened really quickly in terms of the adoption, in terms of growth, where you have 2/3 of the world population with a mobile device in their pocket. That is a massive, massive thing to pivot on as an industry. And so while I think it's absolutely an issue we need to address and spend time on, I also think we need to give it the time to do that. Like, it is a need, we need to be really careful about the thoughtfulness and investment we make to right-size how we fund content on mobile. And for a long time, there's a lot of discussion here about pop-ups. We saw this happen on the internet and on desktop and display, and the industry navigated its way to the right path. So I think we also have to remind ourselves how new and at the beginning of this we are, and have to make some strong investments then to figure out what's that right path. And the notion of having user feedback built in within ad creative, to the point that Jonathan was making, is awesome. Like, those are the types of signals that will help shape that direction, for sure.
Go ahead, Roy.
So, a few points, many to Benjamin, of course. As to the question of you not feeling abused by your phone, and apparently this might be more of a Shine issue, well, you know as much as we do that places in Europe, for example, that 20% of the population is already using desktop ad blocking. You guys have an ad blocking response team, so apparently it's more than just a few people at Shine. As to Shine deciding something on behalf of the consumer, first of all, let's differentiate a couple of things. The Digicel rollout was a decision by Digicel based on the regulatory conditions in the Caribbean in which an opt-out was available. I don't speak on behalf of Digicel, but that's why an opt-out was enabled. I can share with everyone here that a total of 0 consumers opted out of ad blocking while they have a choice, and the call centers have received a total of 0 calls to complain about bad experience. So the truth in numbers, it seems like it's a nice deal for the consumer. As to Europe, though, it's going to be, and Western territories
so just
in general.
In Jamaica, where Digicel has what kind of market share? 40%, something like that?
I believe so.
Suddenly, publishers in Jamaica, you've cut 40% of their revenue, and everybody's happy with that.
It's not a matter of being happy or not. It's about changing the rules of engagement. But let's focus for a moment.
Everybody's happy,
One second,
nobody complains.
let's focus on Europe, because you mentioned that Shine makes a decision. In Europe and in Western territories such as the US and in general, our best practice and the way we're going to roll out is a Shine service. The consumer will opt in to Shine. If the consumer is unhappy with how Shine protects him or her, they are more than welcome to opt out and finish our ability to protect them. There's nothing that's going to be imposed. I know that's uncomfortable, but that is how it is. Now, there's also, it was implied that there's a deal, okay? And I hear a lot about this, this fair trade of content versus, the consumer giving up something, and there's a deal. Well, there is no deal. In fact, it's a vague understanding. What we found, for example, is that anywhere between 5 and 50%, 50% of the consumer's data plan is consumed by ad tech. So what is the deal? Is it 5%? Is it 50%? What is the level of abuse? What is the level of intrusion that a consumer should endure in order to receive content? That's a big question mark. And now I understand the folks on this panel aren't necessarily in the business of abusing consumers in terms of what they wake up in the morning for. But nonetheless, that's a big issue. And moving forward with the internet and more devices in people's hands and more connectivity, there needs to be law and order. And there is none right now.
So it sounds like the wake-up call has been sounded, right? I mean, the mere fact that we're here having this discussion is a pretty clear indication that everybody is keenly aware of the problem. Nick, you look like you have something to contribute.
Yeah, I worry about any time you get a range of 5 to 50%, it's such a big range, it's almost impossible to action. What is clear from some of the research that's been done in the UK a few weeks ago is if you went to a consumer and you said to them, would you rather pay for content or would you rather have free content and have ads? 62% said yes. Okay, so that's a fact. It's not a range. It's a fact that the majority of people would prefer to have a free internet experience that is funded by ads. Secondly, there is a value exchange that has to happen between the publisher or the provider of the service and the consumer. And it doesn't matter whether the service is some type of social platform, whether it's some type of email service, or the myriad of services that there are around free gaming. That it's the free internet is funded by ads. So you're putting publishers into the position where they either end up having to block those users that have blocked ads, or forcing people to pay. And in the end, I know you're the arbiter of what's good for the consumer, but I just don't get how that is good for the consumer. I think it would be a much more practical way if Shine wanted to make their instruments slightly sharper, to actually say, for this particular publisher, the average load time is significantly higher than the average, is consuming a certain amount of data, and therefore that publisher should be blocked. You should also be trying to educate the ecosystem as a whole, across both buyers and sellers, because if you are the arbiter of the consumer, you should have the voice to actually explain and educate the ecosystem as a whole about what is truly good at an individual level for the consumer, as opposed to just blocking all ads for any given consumer.
Let's get your perspective. We haven't heard.
Well, I wanted to pick up on the term vague understanding, and I think we should probably reflect on that a bit. I do think there's an opportunity to better articulate the value exchange with consumers. I mean, I as a consumer have a really hard time keeping up, and there's a huge amount of complexity out there. And like we were saying earlier about the potential of developing new ad models, I think there's opportunities to really think through how we communicate that value exchange. One thing that we've attempted to do, along with a lot of other big advertisers and retailers, is think about consumer engagement principles, where we really try to step up the game in terms of how we communicate what we're doing online, how we articulate that value proposition. And I think we may have to really learn as we go on that. Think more critically about transparency, think more critically about not just gathering feedback, but ongoing feedback loops to kind of really understand. Because we're always surprised. These debates always flare up every 5 years, and we act surprised. And I think the industry needs to get into a better, there may be an opportunity for more continuous kind of consumer-centered learning, so we don't have these types of flare-ups. I'll give an example, just I think everyone has a lot to do and a lot to learn in this area, but one thing that we've been, if you go to Nestle's website, nestle.com, in our privacy area, we're starting to use a series of just simple videos that are just, I think, about a minute or so, maybe 30 seconds, that try to capture the essence of kind of that covenant with the consumer on how we collect data. And then, of course, if you want to layer into the detailed legalese, we allow the consumer to do that. And I do think we've probably hung our coat too much on the legalese as the front end to the consumer.
Is it hard to be effectively transparent?
Yeah, I think transparency is definitely hard, but I think that's part of the bargain. I think that's part of the bargain. That's part of the tension that we need to manage in today's environment. And I think that we're the heart and soul of the creative community. Surely we can step up the game in how we articulate the value exchange. Maybe talk with mobile-centric language around privacy. Mobile raises the stakes for radical simplicity, right?
Yeah.
It's like the power of small. and that means we're going to have to reset the communication format on some of these very complicated issues. And I'm very confident we'll get there, but I think the industry needs to, again, treat this debate as an opportunity to kind of really reset the conversation.
So, Allie, where in the sort of engagement arc of the engagement zeitgeist, if you like, where are we at?
Well, I think you're seeing some brands really take the challenge and do awesome work, right? So if you look at, how many of you guys have seen the Volvo Vin Diesel ad where he does the split between two cars?
Who hasn't?
No? Oh, okay, so obviously them. But this is an amazing ad that when you look at its reach on social and viewing as content is actually higher than the reach in media that the agency in Volvo spent, right? So really awesome example of content, advertising as content. How many of you guys have seen the Like a Girl P&G campaign or heard about it or read about it? Right. So I think one of the things you're starting to see, and you also see this cause marketing, I think, is playing a big role in terms of how brands think about their value and how they connect with consumers on a value level. It is a rethinking of how we think about going to market to talk to consumers, particularly on mobile with a smaller screen and a shorter attention span, but anywhere, frankly. I think you see this happening in television. You see this happening still on the web. But that is great creative is great content. And so the kind of push to the advertiser community is how can we help think about what great content and what engagement means in 10-second bites, right? Or on a mobile screen. How can we help the publisher community think about how do they absorb that and think about content as advertising and accept that Nestle actually probably has a ton of insight on baby products and health and wellness, right? And all the investments that you make on eating better. And so how do you combine those things all to the benefit of the consumer, and that circle, that flywheel of consumer, content owner, and advertiser, it will be healthy. Like that should be the goal, is to get to a place where all of that is working in concert in a very healthy, opportunity creating way for all three of those audiences.
There's at least one highly tweet-worthy quote that you just kind of spun off there. That was good.
That's good, because I get criticized all the time by my team for not being tweet-worthy.
But just a quick follow-on. The examples that you cited are excellent ones, but I would characterize them as more as a brand sell upper funnel. Mm-hmm. I think we're getting, what I think is probably triggering a lot of these complicated debates is more of the the lower funnel click intensity that is potentially, if not managed properly, is annoying consumers enough to kind of download. And again, it's not a new. It's the exact same tension we had at P&G in 1995. When we first said we'd only pay for clicks, that was a huge industry outcry. People said if you pay for clicks, all you're going to see is garbage in the industry. Because everyone will optimize against clicks and you won't have brand sell. And now the debate it's still there, and we just got to really think it through, and the great brand builder is going to, figure out how to balance the two in a really consumer-centric way.
Benjamin, what do you see of this? Is this notion that we're at a point where we're amidst an entire rethink, if you like, in terms of engagement? I mean, how do you perceive that?
Yeah, so strange as it may sound, I'm going to agree with Roi on one point.
You guys have the cameras ready and all that stuff, right?
Which is I think the industry, advertisers and publishers have become very lenient on the speed. And that's probably the fault of some operators, great operators, that deliver you amazing broadband speed on desktop. So it doesn't matter if the page is 10 megs or 20 megs, it really loads fast enough. That's not the case on mobile. And the experience of loading some page is really annoying on mobile. We're launching this week a product available open source called Accelerated Mobile Pages, which resets the standards in terms of speed. So you press on a link and the page loads instantly on your mobile. And to rediscover this wow moment of this is how the internet is supposed to work. Mm-hmm. This is the speed that I like. And that challenges the ad to be as quick as the content. That's the type of thing that really resets also the the contract that we have between publishers and end users. And so that's the type of innovation that I think are really useful and are allowing the conversation to carry on.
Very good. Okay, Nick, I want your perspective on this as well. So this idea that we're at this kind of rethink point in terms of the way brands engage with consumers over a life cycle.
So from a, it's interesting. So Enders released a report this morning, and there were a couple of interesting stats in there around mobile ad spend. So they expect mobile ad spend between 2015 and 2020 to increase 2.6x. But then if you look at mobile native ad spend, they expect that to go from 1.5 billion euros last year to 8.8 billion by 2020, which means that's clearly the biggest growth driver of all. So there's certainly an expectation and an understanding that the world on mobile will move more and more native, and that does open up new opportunities. I certainly agree with the earlier comment around where you have a very small screen, actually that can be to the benefit of creativity rather than to the detriment. And the interactivity of a mobile device vis-a-vis a desktop where you can tap, swipe, etc., gives much more of a human, more tactility in it. So I think there's lots of new opportunities around how to engage with consumers, but very different from what they have been in the past. And so as much as some people refer to it as ad blocker lips or Armageddon to extend some of the military terminology, I actually do think that the industry is going to move forward pretty quickly and start to find some of these new opportunities, and that's certainly backed up by the Enders report as well.
Roi, what do you hear from the panelists when they're kind of articulating about the sort of future of engagement and improvements that they're going to make with specific examples? How does that resonate with you?
Well, let's be clear again that the reason that there are conversations now is, and to use again some militaristic terms, is by virtue of Shine being able to put a nuclear weapon at the end of the pipe. That seems to be a motivator to have these conversations and have them very, very quickly.
A bit dramatic, but
not dramatic. Well, listen, if you find this not dramatic, then no problem at all. Your business is safe. But really, the issue of consumer abuse cannot be expedited enough. And Benjamin wasn't totally truthful. In fact, we agree on more than one thing. Benjamin and I have talked, and he knows that where Shine comes from is an extortion. The 37 men and women at Shine do not wake up in the morning innovating extortion. We wake up in the morning to innovate consumer protection.
And thinking about metaphors as well.
Sorry?
And thinking about military metaphors as well.
Well, nonetheless. But that's what we wake up for. And our background, in fact, is cybersecurity and white hat hacking. We've made careers out of protecting consumers from malware, from governments and criminals and so on and so forth. And today we are helping consumers protect themselves from ad tech. So the conversation is I find it excellent. I believe there should be more of it. But I think it should be also very clear that the cat cannot watch over the milk. The reason we are where we are today, where ad tech has gone unchecked, is because there has been self-policing, or lack of self-policing really. Talk about issues, for example, of viewability, which have only been tackled by the industry because of advertisers, because they decided to choke off the spending. So it seems the ad tech industry has a history of dealing with problems only when they are sort of impossible, and they have to deal with them, that they become existential. And this is one of them. But I believe, again, this is more about an opportunity than a threat.
The IAB has reacted to this, right? And they have this lean initiative. Many of you in the audience may be familiar with this, and I know James brought this up, right? We have guidelines from the IAB, and sometimes we look for ways to kind of go around them, but we should do less of that. Does anybody have an opinion that they would like to share on the efficacy of the lean initiative? I mean, it's kind of one of these whose job is this question. I think you all feel a sense of responsibility that you've conveyed. Allie, any perspective on that?
Well, listen, I think I think what Randall has always done in the industry is try to get out ahead and lead, and probably more importantly, build community around key issues, right? So I think none of us, I will hesitantly speak for my colleagues on the stage, publishing colleagues on the stage, but none of us presume to think that we're going to have every answer all by ourselves. So I think the role of that the IAB is playing to bring everyone together, to have an open dialogue, and to combine big publishing, advertising, ad tech, to combine that whole ecosystem to address mobile advertising going forward, regardless of whether it's a focus on ad blocking or just this new era that we're going to enter. We fully support and are wholly behind.
Nick, what is Yahoo's disposition toward that?
So, I mean, we're obviously members of the IAB. I believe the Lean Initiative is the right way. Maybe it's true to say we probably need to go faster as an industry. But I do think this is a challenge that the industry needs to deal en masse. Now, part of my concern actually is there are numerous publishers that are not members of the IAB that are actually probably some of the strongest defenders without naming any names. And if we can get to a future where some of the ad blocking technology helps us to for want of a better word, remove the relevance of those players from the ecosystem as a whole, then consumers truly will benefit, and you'll maintain the value exchange between the publishers and the consumers as well. And I think that's a good place to be in. What I also would expect to happen over the course of time with the IAB in the short term is to actually engage in the discussions with the operators directly. It is a shame that we don't have any of the operators up on the panel today, and I know Shine have done the deal with Hutchison, although I'm sure everyone's aware, but also one of the lead investors in Shine is Hutchison. So I'm not sure whether I was fascinated by O2's comment yesterday to say that they don't believe ad blocking at the network level is the right way forward. So even within the operator community, there's some disparity of opinions. So I think if those guys engaging with the IAB on the Lean Initiative would be helpful and worthwhile for everyone as we look to move forward.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a good chat with Randall earlier this morning, and I sense he's asking all the right questions. We need to scrutinize the full agenda and policy plank, but. I've worked with him pretty closely in my prior life on the National Advertising Review Council, and I think when he revs up, he's incredibly proactive, and I think we need to rally behind him and others to really, again, to the earlier point, how do you kind of shape a positive industry outcome that works for consumers as well? I mean, it's a great challenge. It's why we're here, and I think we should, bear hug the challenge and get it right.
Very good. Okay, now we have 3 minutes and 41 seconds left. And what I'm going to do, I think we have time for maybe maybe two quick audience questions. So if you would like to ask a question to the panel, please put your hand up. Somebody's going to come around with a microphone, fastest man in the room. And if you would like to ask a question, just when you get the microphone, let us know who you're representing and who you'd like to address your question to. So any questions for the panel?
There's one over there.
Shine light on it.
Okay, yeah, so we have one over here. Great.
Hello guys, my name is Daniel, I'm from Russia. My question is, you're using the words advertisement and engagement in one sentence, but it is a narrow border between annoying advertisement and attractive engagement. Four of you making advertisement long time. Could you please describe this border between annoying advertisement and attractive engagement on the one hand?
So I think this is a question about the, if there's a Venn diagram between advertising and engagement, what does the shaded area look like? If I'm interpreting that
shaded
correctly.
area, there's one thing we see, for example, on the 10 most viewed videos on YouTube last year, 4 of them were ads. So ads do become more entertaining, and that's, I think, a contract that advertisers are giving to their consumers is they give more than just a message. They give more than just placarding their message over and over again. They engage. They let them penetrate their values, etc. And I think that's what's really also make great ads in the end.
Good deal. All right, so I know we're going to be at the end of our time in just a couple of minutes, so we're going to move to the lightning round. Lightning, chapow, fast. And I'm going to go down the panel in order, and I'll start with you, Allie. When we are back here in 2018, a couple of years, what is the title of this panel?
Unleashing creativity.
All right, all right.
The great industry ad breakthrough.
No pressure. But it is the lightning round. So the implication is we can come back if you like.
Unblocking creativity.
All right.
Engaging ads across all devices, not just mobile.
Lovely. All right, Roy, the last word.
Last word. Well, if it's last word.
Lightning.
How about this? First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win.
All right, don't wait for the movie, folks. Please, let's have a hand for the panelists, and thank you all very much.